everyone, welcome back to On The Fly. Today we're going to be recapping the NHL Trade Bait Board, Part 4. If you haven't already, be sure to check out parts 1, 2, and 3 to find out how we got here, as well as the analysis behind those picks. And this is quite the board we have so far, and especially come trade deadline day, there are going to be quite a few moves made. A lot of players are going to be on the move. This is sort of one of the big years in terms of the ending of contracts, so be sure to take a look at parts 1, 2, and 3 to figure out which players, at least I believe, will be on the move. And let me know down below who you think is going to be on the move and who you think should and deserves to be in that top 10 that will be coming out tomorrow at some point. So be sure to check in tomorrow to catch the finale of part 5. But with that, we'll get right on into it today with number 20 on the list, with the Toronto Maple Leafs first round pick. When I take a look at the first round pick, as you saw the last video, I sort of grouped together Sandin, Liljegren, Dermott, now the Leafs first overall pick. When I take a look at this sort of first round pick, I expect some sort of big package deal to be made. You take a look at with the recent loss of Jake Muzzin, probably going to come back some point around the playoffs, very Kucherov-like, where they sort of save the cap and then bring him back for the playoffs. The NHL will most likely have to address that rule at some point, but as of now, they don't have to do anything about it. They're going to save his cap. Mostly make a big move and big splash at the deadline. It's hard to tell who it's going to be as of right now, but I do expect a big time move out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So with that, Toronto Maple Leafs first round pick going to be at number 20. So moving on to the number 19 on the list, we have Damon Severson, valuing in at $4.2 million over 1 year. So for him, I don't know if he'll be traded yet. He has one more year on his contract, assistant captain for the New Jersey Devils. But overall, if they do want to trade him, now is a really good time to do so. Severson is having one of his better years of his career. And when we really look at him, New Jersey's not necessarily looking right now at a playoff run. They're sort of in that bottom cusp of the league, and I do expect them to try and be making some big time moves at the deadline. There is 2 Devils on this list, so you'll sort of see. This one, I'm not sure, because he's sort of the leader. You have an extra year for him. But at the end of the day, he has a lot of value right now. If you want to trade him, you sort of get that double prong with the leadership and the talent behind it. And that's another one where I do believe the Leafs will be taking a look at him, because obviously when you take a look at what the Leafs need, it's sort of that defensive role, maybe a goaltender, but I'm not sure the Leafs will be making a move for a goaltender. But at the end of the day, the Devils are going to be a team that is going to be quite active at the deadline, and I do expect quite a few players to be moved. But with that, Damon Severson coming in at number 19 on the list. Moving on to number 18 on the list, we have Rickard Rakell coming in at $3.789 million. He is going to be a UFA at the end of the year. So taking a look at a guy like Rickard Rakell, for him, he's sort of a player that's hard to determine where he is going, because it makes a lot of sense for the Anaheim Ducks to make a move for him. They're sort of coming into that tough sort of cap crunch right now. They are a good team, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure they can keep it, and they don't want to lose players for nothing. They sort of got the big 3 going into unrestricted free agency. They don't have the cap space that they once did. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of big, or at least creative moves they're going to make come deadline day. I think Rakell is going to be one of those players. He is a very good player, definitely a top 6 player on any team. And I do expect him to be traded at this deadline just because of that contract. He's going to be asking for a lot, and is probably going to handcuff the Anaheim Ducks. So at the end of the day, it makes a lot of sense for Rakell to go, and with that, he will be on number 18 on this list. Moving on to number 17 on the list, we have Vasily Kravtsov coming at $925,000. Going to be an RFA next year. And he has been playing out in the KHL, so it is hard to determine what's going to be happening with Kravtsov. He might also end up signing out in the KHL. So with him, the Rangers are very likely to move him, and we'll sort of group in Philip Cheeto coming at 2.3 over 1 year. So with those 2 guys, they're most likely going to be a package deal for something. They've been heavily rumored throughout this year, at least, to be in sort of the works with Chychrun, and really the biggest names you can find on the market right now. I'm looking forward to seeing if they do end up making a move. Hurdle's another one where I think at least the Rangers would be looking at. But with that, we'll have Kravtsov coming in at 17, Cheeto coming in at 15. Moving on to number 16 with the Minnesota first round pick. And I do expect Minnesota's first round pick to be traded this year. They're sort of on that verge of the playoff race. And I do expect them to sort of try and make that final push, get into the playoffs, be there for their fans, and really sort of try and push their agenda, get their playoff runs alive. And I think if they can do this, at least they can pull off a pretty big trade. There's no reason why I see they cannot make it far in this playoff run. But at the end of the day, it's up to Minnesota to make that move. But I do expect that first round pick, because it has a little bit of value. They're not necessarily that high-end team like you look at a Toronto or Tampa, where it's most likely going to be a back-end pick, sort of in that 30 ranges. But with that, I do expect the Minnesota first-round pick to be traded this year, and with that will come in at number 16. As I mentioned, Cheeto at 15, moving on to number 14, with Pavel Zacha coming in at $2.25 million. He will be an arbitration-eligible RFA for next year. With the Devils, this is one of those players where he could be moved. There's no real pressure for the Devils to move him. They are in that rebuilding phase. Zacha sort of fits in with that mold of the rebuild. But I don't know overly that Zacha wants to sort of remain in New Jersey. He has the potential to grow. He's quite the player in New Jersey, playing alongside guys like Jack Hughes. But at the end of the day, I don't know if Zacha would rather play out with a contending team right now. And I think at the end of the day, Zacha has been rumored to be in trades. I think if they are going to move him, it is definitely a good time to do it before the arbitration year, where you get to sort of pick his contract. So you got to be careful, especially come a little bit closer to that deadline, because you don't want to be handcuffed, right? You take a look at some of these other teams that have been stuck with arbitration. It is a tough time for NHL teams to try and get around it. But at the end of the day, we will see what they end up doing with Pavel Zacha. So Zacha will come in at number 14. Moving on to number 13 with Justin Braun, $1.8 million UFA. So with Braun, he is one of those better defensemen on this list. With pretty much throughout the list, this is sort of your top 4 defensemen, and he is one of the better ones. I mean, we take a look at some of the other guys on this list. Braun is not necessarily that veteran leader type guy. I take a look at other guys like Giordano, who's going to come up a little bit later here. But really, when you take a look at it, Braun's more there for the skill. You're not necessarily relying on him for that leadership. Yes, he does bring it a little bit, but with that, I would prefer Giordano in terms of the leadership, but I definitely prefer Braun for the skill. And for teams looking for skilled defensemen, once again, bringing it back to the Leafs, that first round pick might come in handy for the Philadelphia Flyers, as they do go into a heavy yard sale come deadline day, and I do expect the Flyers to be one of the most active teams. You take a look at what's going on in the Flyers organization right now, a lot of UFA ending contracts, and I do expect a lot of moves from there, and Braun will be probably one of the first guys to go, so that he will be coming in at number 13 on this list. Moving on to number 12 on this list, we have Max Domi coming in at $5.3 million UFA at the end of this year. So taking a look at a guy like Max Domi, hasn't quite got off to a good start this year. Playing in Columbus, not necessarily what he wanted coming in there, and I do expect him to be traded at this deadline, not necessarily the expectations. The Blue Jackets aren't nearly close enough to be having a guy like Domi on their team. UFA coming up. I don't expect him to re-sign. Hasn't really shown interest in re-signing. It's sort of a sad moment for Max Domi, obviously coming from the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know if they're going to continue. And I think Domi will end up actually going back to the Habs. And I think that will be sort of his unrestricted free agency. So any teams looking for sort of that rental top 6 forward, definitely don't look past Max Domi. He still is very good, just hasn't quite got the opportunities in Columbus like he would have liked to. But with that, we're going to put Max Domi in at number 12 on this list. And finally, at number 11, we have Mark Giordano. So with Giordano, he does have a 13-team no-trade clause. And this really isn't going to be too much of an impact for when you take a look at sort of the Kraken trying to trade him, because he'll pick basically all the teams that aren't very good right now, and really they're just going to be trading him for a contender anyway, not necessarily looking for that re-sign, because Giordano is another player where you can sort of pick out where he's going after his contract ends. $6.75 million right now, UFA at the end of the year. Very likely to go back to Calgary, where of course he was the captain. And when you take a look at Giordano, definitely a guy that you can really rely upon. Obviously, he has been the captain for many years in Calgary, captain of the Seattle Kraken right now. And I do expect him to be traded. Unfortunately, just with the way the Kraken picked this year, didn't quite end up as well as they would have liked to, and really not necessarily in the standings for Giordano. In his last few years in this league, this is probably going to be his last chance to make a deep run in the playoffs, and I think especially with him going back to Calgary, probably for the next 2-ish years, this is going to be his final chance at a cup. So whichever team Giordano does end up going to, expect it to be a contending team, and I really am going to expect one of the heavier favorites, especially to sort of take on that sort of low cap role, maybe send it to a different team, retain the 50% salary. Obviously, is ending this year, so they don't have to worry about the three-player 50% retained rule. But with that is our current list. This is the current updated list. Be sure to check in tomorrow for the finale of this series. But with that, if you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. If you like it, drop a like. If you like, consider subscribing, tell all your friends, and leave a comment down below your thoughts on the trade bait board 20 through 11. Until next time, see ya.